Hello and good morning, friends. Today, I want to talk to you about a story that happened in our local area about a week ago. Now, this is kind of one of those things that doesn't happen very often, but it is related to this industry, and I think it's important that we discuss this. So you may be asking, what happened? Well, turns out, a few days back, that a fella was in his backyard doing his own thing, and he fell down a well. You might be asking, well, how on earth does something like that happen? Well, it turns out that this particular house had a buried hand-dug well in the backyard, or at least from the conversations I've had with local EMTs, firefighters, etc. in the area. The story, based off of WEAL, which is our local news station, is that this gentleman was in his backyard, and the ground gave way, and he plummeted into a 30-foot pit. I'm going to have the story linked below. Same thing with another CBS article, but they basically say the same thing. So what happened was the ground gave way, this guy fell down into the hole, and apparently it wasn't until the next day that somebody hurt him. And I think that this is a tragic issue, and the guy lived, he's fine, or at least based off what the article said, is he was transported for medical attention, he's in stable, non-life-threatening condition, he's good to go. Or eventually. I'm sure that's probably got some kind of psychological effect on you, falling into a well and being stuck there for over a day, just sitting there in the dark, in the water, looking up at a hole. So what happened once he fell in, right? The neighbor's out walking his dog the following day, and he hears something weird. Now, this neighbor hears the weird noise and goes to investigate, as most of us would, right? If it was my house, if I heard a weird noise in my backyard, I'd probably go look. Neighbor walks over and he hears this guy crying for help, and eventually he calls the fire department. Fire department comes in, they get this guy out, and it's dangerous doing confined space entry and confined space rescues. I'm not a paramedic, nor am I a firefighter, but I do know that confined space entry is very rigorous and dangerous for all parties involved, the victim as well as the rescuers, because you never know what kind of gases are down there, you don't know what kind of oxygen you're working with, you don't know what's going to happen until it's too late. And a lot of times with confined space entry, you pass out before you really realize what's going on, right? So, the fire department gets this guy out of the hole and send him on his way. Now, he was in the hole for about a full day in there. And that made me think, well, this is why it's really important to have good, proper worksite safety and know what's on the property. And that's where this comes into play, right? So I wanted to have a conversation with you guys because stuff like this does happen. And it's something that you don't really see happening, but on the rare occasion. But when it does, it usually is very dramatic, and it's not good for the person involved. Now, in this industry, we work on a lot of old homes, we work on new houses, we're in the woods, sometimes we're in mud slop. You never know what kind of condition you're going to work on. And that's why OSHA exists, right? Some of us may agree and disagree with some of the practices that they have and some of the regulations that they do, but it's important to make sure that you come home the following day, right? This story, even though it ended fine with the guy living, he very well could have died, right? He could have fell into that hole, never been seen again, and his family would be out one individual. I don't know how old this guy is. I just know that he lives in Southwest Baltimore. So when we're working on these sites, it's important to think about what's around you. And usually hand-dug wells, especially when they're buried, they're very hard to tell that it's there. This guy probably had no idea what was going on. If it had a layer of sod on top, you're never going to see it, which is why it's even more dangerous. But this comes into play of why it's important to make sure that you have proper knowledge of what's on the property. The county knows what's on the property. This is why they require permits to abandon wells. Now, modern wells are nowhere near as big as old hand-dug wells. Some of you may have heard the story of baby Jessica, and her story is very similar, except for this takes place in the 80s and she was a kid. So most of our modern well standards, or at least in our state, and I would argue probably across the country, all these modern well standards are really kind of derived around this girl falling into the well, getting stuck, and the heroic efforts that it took to get her out and safe. She's also alive, and she's doing quite fine for herself now. The issue is with these wells, you're putting a very large hole in the ground. Now, it's a straight up and down hole. Usually they're smooth. If it's a hand-dug well, it's going to be, either concrete or stone. Usually they're concrete, but you never know. Or sorry, usually they're stone, but you never really know until you're in it. In that neighborhood, I have seen stone wells. I've just never seen one that was buried with a layer of dirt on top. And with baby Jessica's experience, now we have to basically permit whenever you abandon a well, as well as when you drill a well. The permitting process for drilling the wells to make sure that you do it correctly, you don't get anybody sick, you don't have any kind of problems. But the abandonment is so that way somebody in the future knows that that hole is there, and that way they can plan accordingly, all right? In this particular circumstance, probably because of a lack of good records, a lack of the city knowing what's there, and probably a lack of regulation forcing whoever has built and maintained those homes, because of that, that poor fella fell into the hole. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so I don't really know who's got liability or if insurance is going to, like, I don't know, can he sue himself if he sues the homeowner because he is the homeowner? I know that as a person who goes onto a house, if you go there and you don't know that something's there and you get injured, the homeowner is liable for any third-party injuries, but I don't know. If you're a lawyer listening to this, leave a comment below. I think this is fascinating. Maybe we have a conversation about this. It's interesting to me, but regardless. So if you're able to identify what you're looking at, this is just me talking to the contractors and homeowners. If you know that something's there, if you're able to identify it, you need to be careful, right? Paying attention to the slope, what type of grass you're working with, if there's grass at all, how wet are conditions, what hazards are laying around, wires, metal pipes, holes, stuff like that. Falls, stab injuries, electrocution, stuff like that can hurt you and or kill you, right? It's very important to make sure you're paying attention to what's going on. Now, as far as stuff like this happening, it's so rare that you don't really have to pay that much attention to it, but it does happen. So if you have an old house, I would always recommend request the records from the county and try your best to do as thorough of an inspection as you can possibly do. In this particular circumstance, this guy had no idea. And even if he did an inspection, the odds of anybody finding a hand dug well, if literally nobody knows it's there, you're just looking for a needle in a haystack. You could have that well literally anywhere and you'd never find it until something like this happens. This is also another reason why metal septic tanks are no longer acceptable at all, because the same issue kept happening with them. But we'll cover metal septic tanks in a different day. I thought this was interesting. Trying something new. I was thinking about on Wednesdays making it a conversation where we kind of go through what's happening in the news in the local area for well or septic related things. Leave a comment below if you think that this style of conversation, or maybe you want to know more about the local news in the industry. If that's something you guys want me to continue doing, leave a comment below. Let me know. Hit that like button though. And if you are going to go as far as hitting the like button or hitting subscribe, and you're not, or sorry, hitting the like button or leaving a comment, you may as well go ahead and subscribe if you haven't done so already. I have more videos posted every day on the World of Well and Septic, and I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow.